For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber. Instant analysis of USC's Monday practice, a week 2 in preparation for the Cotton Bowl in Texas. Helton promised last week that today's practice would be a physical practice. We kind of saw that. It was physical in the beginning. They didn't go full pads, shoulder pads only, but it started out physical and it started to kind of tail off. It was a good practice overall, but you kind of notice that they know what they're doing, and the energy seemed to kind of die towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can only do so much, and I think they've got a luxury of 3 weeks to get ready for a game, and I haven't had that all year. I mean, I think Sam was talking about it last week, like, oh, we got 3 weeks to get ready for this game, and I think they were ready for this game to a great extent last week. I mean, they basically are pretty good. They've had 12 weeks with no bye. Obviously, we've mentioned that a few times. And so they basically had to get ready every week. 1 week, unfortunately, they had to get ready in a one fewer day. Now they have 3 weeks. I think they really are ready in a lot of ways. Now, they'll take some time off for Christmas, get back to Dallas. But I think this is a couple of tough days because they did a full week last week, and now these 2 days are just sort of hanging there. And then take the time off, go to Texas, and then have a week to basically get ready for Ohio State. But I think it's hard to know exactly what you do with these 2 days.
Yeah, how would you view this? Is this how much time they have? Is it a strength? Does it kind of take away from certain things because they're not even in their normal schedule? As we said, today's Monday. They don't normally practice on Monday this heavy, and then tomorrow's going to be a morning practice. Does flipping around their schedule so much that what they've been used to for 12 weeks, it's so different now? Does that hurt them at all?
I don't think we know. I think it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be a negative at all. I mean, I think they're going to be better prepared for this game than anything they've done all year. So they had extra time to get ready for the Stanford game also. So I think it's a learning experience in terms of for both the coaches and the players. How do you use that extra time? How do you stay fresh? I mean, I like the in terms of the physicality, in terms of the movement, in terms of the running. And there was some popping out there, but I thought they looked physically better than they have all year in terms of just, guys flying around and, the one-on-ones and 7-on-7s with the wide receivers against the defensive backs and all that. We're seeing guys just flying around out there. So I think that's a really good thing. But I think it'll pick up when they get to Dallas. I think then you get into this whole, you're there, Ohio State's there, everybody's kind of, the back and forth between the two teams. I just think last week, I think, was a good week. Next week, I think, can be a really good week. This week's kind of that in-between week where you've got time off, you're going to try to do Christmas early, you're going to travel and all that. I think this week is the week that's, I think what some coaches have done is they've said this would be the time where you really get a lot of work for your red shirts and your second team and third team guys. They haven't chosen to do that. I mean, that was something that Pete Carroll really believed in. And this is the time you get the guys that haven't gotten to do much all year. So they're not going that route. So I think it's a little more difficult to keep them really sharp and on edge this particular week. This middle week is harder.
Mm-hmm. And since it is the middle week, we got a better picture of the injury situation. Velus Jones, who hurt his ankle last week, he actually was on a scooter today at practice, which means not good for his progress in his ankle injury. Jack Jones also did not practice. Porter Gus didn't watch practice again. And then Olawale Batiku ended practice early. He has a left groin pull, is what Helton said. And then I talked to Rojo today, and he said that his ankle is healing up and should be ready for Dallas.
Yeah, he's kind of doing the over-taping of his shoes and that, but you wouldn't be able to notice that there's an issue with his ankle. Jack Jones was moving around decently, just watching, but kind of playing around with the football, spinning the ball and all that. We did see Porter Gustin did jog, like from one field to the other, and we haven't seen him do that yet. So that's a little bit of progress. He's still just observing what's going on, but I don't know that you necessarily totally rule him out at this point. There does seem to be some progress with Porter.
Mm-hmm. And as far as Cedric Porter goes, we mentioned last week that he left practice with ice on his knee. He was back. He had a sleeve on his knee, but he did do some work. He was limited, but he did do some running, and he looked pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah, I thought the running backs had a really good day. They just pop out at you. Stephen Carr just looks, and you had mentioned Vavai. I thought the running backs just really had a good day. They just looked, they were young. When you look at back, you think Vavai and Stephen hadn't played college football before, and they're in a whole different place. I talked to Stephen a little bit after practice. They're in a whole different place right now than they were when this season started. So I thought they caught your eye, and I thought the wide receivers had a good day today as well, and I thought Sam threw the ball well. So it was more of an offensive day. It's harder to some extent for the defense to show up when they're not in full pads and when the running backs are getting a chance. So, but I think physically they look good. I like where they are physically.
Yeah. Speaking of running backs, I actually got to talk to Ronald Jones today. I asked him, what in your decision, what matters? What will make you go to the NFL? What proves to you? And he said, when I feel like I can go to the NFL. And also what his coaches believe, what his family believes. He says, if my coaches don't think I'm ready, then I probably won't go. But ultimately, he said, it's up to me. And I said, well, how do you feel? And he says, I think I'm ready for the NFL. So he was much more open this week, I think, than he has been in past weeks about whether he's ready. It seems like a foregone conclusion at this point. But at least he's getting to that point with the media as well.
Yeah, I think he knows he's ready, and I think he's getting that validation from, all kinds of, sources that are, starting to realize how ready he is. So I think he's heard it from enough people, and, the clock is ticking for running backs, and I just think everything points to he's ready. He knows he's ready, and he's going to go. I mean, they've got 10 players, 10 juniors, or 10 guys with junior eligibility who are taking a look at it, and of all those, he would seem to be the most certain by far that he's going to say it's time to go. I don't think there's any other way to look at it.
Yeah, for sure. But speaking of guys leaving, Helton was asked, is it hard knowing to tell what to tell recruits when you don't know what scholarships will be available? As you know, the early signing period is on Wednesday this week. So Helton said it's a juggling act trying to figure out the amount of scholarships he'll have available next season.
And for those recruits where it is a question mark, because the USC players, all the college players that are going to declare have until January 15th. So if you're in a position, let's say, of I want to see what's going to happen at USC, then you just wait until the February signing day. Yeah. You'll have plenty of time. So in some ways, you're not asking a kid to necessarily take a blind guess. He'll know if how many of those 10 decide to go to the NFL, and what does that change? Especially a kid maybe that wants to come in and have a chance in his own mind to play right away, and he'll know because by January 15th, those will be, we'll know all the ones that are leaving, and then you'll have a couple of weeks to get ready for the February signing date. So I think Clay is very positive about it. A lot of coaches are not as positive about it as Clay. I think Clay's more, we're going to make the best of it, and we're going to just make it work for us. As hectic as it's been, but that one point there in terms of kids, giving the kids a chance to see who's going to be here, who's not going to be here, and how does that affect your situation. Kids have an extra couple of weeks.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that the wide receivers look good. We both noted that Joseph Lewis looked pretty good in practice today. And an interesting thing happened. We were waiting for T. Martin at the end of practice after Helton had talked. We're just waiting around, and we see that he's talking to Joseph Lewis, and they were talking for a while. I think we maxed out at around 30 minutes, and then we were...
Actually, 40 plus.
Okay.
That was as long as everybody was allowed to wait. We'll have to get T. We're trying to negotiate to get him tomorrow, but I'm having a feeling we're not going to get him until Dallas. But that was a very serious conversation between T and and Joseph Lewis, very serious, and they could still be talking now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We don't even know. Yeah. So, but is that concerning at all? Because Joseph Lewis is one of those guys who has talent. Maybe he's upset at playing time. That's just speculation, I'm saying. But where do you? Well, that seems a little concerning. That serious, long conversation.
Yeah, I think it could be both. It could be concerning, and it also could be assuring that you've got that ability to have that kind of a conversation with your offensive coordinator and your wide receiver coach. So I think you can look at it, in both ways. But I'm sure there is a concern if you're Joseph Lewis, and he's he looks like he belongs. He looks like he makes a lot of plays, and there just hasn't been enough time for him to be on the field a lot during games, and I'm sure you're asking, what about me?
Yeah.
I mean, do I? And the shame might be that when they needed him, when Michael Pittman was hurt, more than first half of the season, probably Joseph Lewis wasn't quite ready. I mean, here's a 6'2", 215 pounds, very big, very athletic, the kind of guy who could have maybe filled in for Michael Pittman, except for the fact that he's just coming out of high school and you're not quite ready yet. So now, let's say he's much more ready. Like Stephen Carr was talking about how much difference it is to be at the end of your first year playing college than it was at the start. That's the same thing for Joseph Lewis. And yet there are so many wide receivers, there's not necessarily how much better you are doesn't necessarily put you on the field right now, because you've got the Michael Pittman coming back and the Tyler Vaughn's developing, and Stephen Mitchell, who we didn't expect him to come back and have the kind of year he's had, bouncing back from his injuries. So you could just be one of those where you just got squeezed a little bit, and it's just the luck of the draw to some extent for say a Joseph Lewis.
Yeah, but as far as practice goes, like we mentioned, tomorrow is going to be an early practice, back to the earlier practices that we had a couple years ago, and then they'll be off for a little bit, and then it's off to Dallas. What does the schedule look like once they're in Dallas?
Well, it's interesting. Day one, both teams get there, sometime afternoon on, I guess it's Friday, 23rd. And Ohio State goes immediately to high school, and they go to practice. Then they go to their hotel, and they have a big welcoming ceremony at both hotels. All I could hope for is it's nothing like the Sun Bowl, where that welcoming ceremony where they put that gigantic sombrero on Lane Kiffin. It might have been one of the most awkward moments I've ever seen. The whole Sun Bowl was awkward, but putting that sombrero on Lane Kiffin as he walked into the hotel, that was not a good moment. But Ohio State's going to practice, then they go to the hotel. USC's going right from the airport to the hotel. They'll have a press conference and welcoming ceremonies and all that. But USC's not going to practice day one on Friday, where Ohio State is. And then they both practice every day from then on. But Ohio State's going to get in one extra practice in Dallas, one more practice in USC.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know. And then they each have a couple of days. I think the Cowboys must be home for one of those days, because the teams have to practice at their respective high schools. And then I guess starting on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they get practice at AT&T Stadium, and then they have a walkthrough. And it's interesting, again, on the walkthrough day, Thursday, Ohio State gets to go to AT&T Stadium. USC has to go back to the high school. So I don't know if that's because Ohio State's the higher ranked team or whatever, but USC doesn't get to do the walkthrough on Thursday at AT&T Stadium.
Interesting.
I know.
I did not expect Lane Kiffin and his sombrero to be mentioned in this incident, but what can you do?
If you were there, you will never forget the look. One of the great pictures of all time was Lane putting that sombrero on. He no more wanted to put that sombrero. I don't know that he even wanted to be in El Paso, much less have to put a sombrero on.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for the Cotton Bowl incident analysis of Monday, week 2. We crunched some numbers. This is including this one. There's only 2 more instant analysis left. So we'll see you tomorrow, pretty soon for instant analysis tomorrow. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out USCfootball.com.